You may have received some photos recently or in the past year or so of a newborn baby in your family or to a friend's family, and you look at the picture and think, my, how cute, how beautiful this little child. You rejoice with the parents over God's blessing in their lives, and you're thankful for the privilege of taking part in their joy. And yet perhaps as you have seen quite a few days now in the course of life, and you look towards the future, you might begin to wonder, what does the future hold for this little child? What will become of a baby born today? Particularly considering the kinds of economic upheavals we've experienced in the last few years. A bipartisan commission appointed by the Obama administration has determined that I think it's by the end of this year, we will have $14 trillion in debt in the federal government. $14 trillion of debt to pay off. If you were to break that down to everyone living in the United States, that would amount to $47,000 each. That's your bill. Kindly deposit that on the way out today. How are we going to pay that off? And we're not finished yet. The economy continues to struggle. There's still talk of additional stimuluses to try to get the economy going, and by that they mean additional spending. Not cutting spending, more spending. So, what does the future hold for a child? It's rather frightening when you think about it. But also frightening not only for children, but also for seniors, those who are advancing in life, who may see their 401k plans and their retirement accounts diminishing, vanishing before their very eyes, rapidly drawing down when they had not anticipated such stress on their accounts. They may be anticipating an extended life, longer than perhaps what was anticipated earlier when they started. And so, will they run out of money as time goes on? And what of the increasing violence of a community or a nation that might plunge into economic turmoil? Will there be additional stresses in that regard? And will you be strong enough to withstand those kinds of things? There are dangers that lurk in every corner. And one can understand why we are concerned for the young and also for the elderly, and those of us in between are concerned as well. Isaiah writes to a congregation in his day where he wishes to give some comfort not only to those who are young, but especially to the elderly. In the course of life, as they looked to their future, they saw a time of decline in Israel's influence. They saw on the horizon nation-states like Assyria threatening them. They are paying tribute to different nations to buy support, to protect themselves. And Isaiah is telling that the Babylonians will someday come in and take the city captive, destroy the city of Jerusalem. And so the elderly must be wondering, how will God provide for me under these circumstances? What will become of me when all these things take place? So Isaiah addresses a word of comfort to them as well. A word of encouragement to the saints of God. A word that reminds them that they should not be so much looking at themselves and their own personal weaknesses, the decline in their abilities, their exposure or their vulnerability to attack or even to illness, disease, and death itself. But rather than looking at themselves, they need to look to their God and be refreshed in their view of who this God is, so that that faith would strengthen them for the days that are ahead. That faith would secure them So that as they go through the stages of life, whether it be in infancy and raising children, or in one's elderly and declining years, as one approaches one's final days, by looking to the Lord and His glory, by focusing on who He is, you will be strengthened for everything that this life will bring your way. You will be equipped for even the most difficult days that might be before us. So this morning we want to hear what Isaiah has to say and be encouraged by what he says, so that we too, in a similar circumstance, not only looking at the challenges that face our world today, but also just the very personal challenges that each of us has as we grow older and we think about our spiritual condition. Will I remain within the faith of the Lord Jesus Christ? Will I continue in His church? Is my salvation secure, or is it something that I might lose by departing from God? Or as we get older, we become more and more conscious of past sins and things that we've done wrong, and the weight of sin begins to weigh heavily on us, particularly as we see the approach of our final days. What will we do with this burden of guilt, this sin that seems to come with us? Are we prepared to meet our Maker? So Isaiah has a word of comfort to us, to encourage us in every stage of life to look to the Lord, to who He is and what He has accomplished for us. Isaiah begins by reminding the church that the God whom they serve is not like the gods of the nations around them. And so they should first of all be encouraged by looking out to what's out there. Sometimes it's like when Jesus asked the disciples, "Who do you think I am?" They said, "Some think this and that. Who do you say that I am?" "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." When there was a challenge with regard to whether they should serve Christ or depart from Christ, I'm getting a little confused here. It's rather in John's Gospel, when many of the disciples were leaving Jesus because of the difficulty of His teaching. Jesus turns to His disciples who made this confession and says, "Will you depart from me as well?" And Peter once more stands up and says, "Lord, to whom shall we go? For you have the words of life eternal." Sometimes it's good and helpful and encouraging to just take a moment and look at what else is out there, to make the comparison, to see who your God is by comparison with what else is out there. And that can assure you that your faith in the Lord is worthwhile. The God whom you serve is one who is actually active in history, one who actually comes near to you and brings you salvation, as opposed to the other gods of the nations.